Hi, everybody. My name is Dan Nicolaisen, and I manage a team that we refer to as the solutions architects here at Abnormal AI. For what it's worth, I've been at Abnormal for about 4.5 years and have been doing this solutions architect type of work for about the last 3 years or so of my time here. Our primary set of responsibilities is actually working with organizations who are looking to deprecate their use of third-party security email gateways in favor of leveraging the platform native gateway in Microsoft or Google Workspace alongside Abnormal AI. Um, we'll just say for myself, I'm actually based in the Salt Lake City, Utah area, and I've been doing email security for about the last 10 years of my career. So today, what we're going to be talking about is this AI native advantage that Abnormal delivers to organizations of all shapes and sizes, the way that we approach threat detection, and the way that we ultimately simplify and automate a number of otherwise kind of tedious, mundane, and ultimately risky SOC functions that we see a lot of organizations struggling with today. And so, with that, as we come into and talk about what we're going to be focused on today, I want to introduce this idea of abnormal AI, not only for stopping attacks, but also for various items of automation. And before we dive into these areas, I just want to mention first and foremost that abnormal itself, in coming into this market, we didn't want to necessarily replicate the secure email gateway wheel. That was kind of a mature architecture, something that had been in place for over 20 years. And as Abnormal entered this market, we kind of had this realization that, well, yes, just about every organization that we ever work with is leveraging some sort of secure email gateway, sometimes two or three. We end up in this state where there's still this kind of subset of unwanted and malicious messages that make it pass that have resulted in statistics like 90% plus of data breaches begin with email. And since about 2013, when the FBI started tracking this, over $50 billion had been lost to the risk or the threat that is business email compromise. And so as we talk about abnormal in the way that it actually delivers its capabilities, what I'll ask you to do is kind of keep those statistics in mind as we understand how abnormal functions and operates and what we're ultimately delivering to our clients. And so with that, we're going to start with abnormal AI for stopping attacks, and specifically attacks within the world of email and email security. So, abnormal itself, as I mentioned, coming into this space, we didn't want to necessarily replicate the secure email gateway wheel. Rather, what we said is, let's see if we can automate the process of dealing with that last 1 or 2 or 3% of unwanted and malicious messages that are making it past the email gateway and resulting in those types of statistics where data breaches largely originate with email and an awful lot of money has been lost to things like business email compromise over time. And so to do this, what Abnormal did is we said, what if we could replicate or emulate the way that a human SOC analyst looks for that last 1 or 2% of unwanted and malicious messages? Let's see if we could do that at greater scale, faster, and with significantly less effort than what the SOC would ultimately do. And so as we can kind of compare and contrast these two items side by side, on the left-hand side of this slide, this would be kind of the human SOC operation processes. So I've got my email gateway up front, I've got messages that are arriving in mailboxes, and I'm doing various activities to identify that last 1 or 2% on my own. That can be ingesting, threat intel feeds from other security services like known bad URLs, known bad IP addresses. That can be participating in broader industry things like from an ISAC, for example. And then what I'll also do is ingest things like user-reported messages. I'll be writing correlation queries in my SIM or my SOAR platform. All of this to try to identify any latent risk or any risk from an email perspective that has already made it past that email gateway control that is much more of a preventive control. What's interesting about this process, though, is that while, yes, every SOC that we ever encounter is working through these types of processes, is it tends to take time and they're still not quite getting the outcome that they want. It takes minutes to hours to days or weeks even to kind of identify this last 1 or 2% of unwanted and malicious messages, correlate appropriate data, write rules to address those, and then tune those rules over time. Ultimately, we see this leading to burnout. We see this leading to risk that is not entirely mitigated. And at the end of the day, there are, as I mentioned, risk that is still not mitigated. And so when Abnormal came onto the scene and we said, let's integrate natively into your M365 or Google Workspace tenant, and let's see if we can emulate that human SOC analyst, what we did is supercharge this with strong AI capabilities where instead of tens or dozens of data signals, we're ingesting tens of thousands of data signals so that we can identify and profile what normal behavior looks like. We then automatically organize that data, correlate it, and we're making automated decisions in a matter of seconds, effectively in real time, as messages are making it past those upstream email controls and otherwise landing in user mailboxes. And so Abnormal's inbound email security solution can be viewed as an AI SOC analyst that is just focused on mitigating the risk of that last 1 or 2% of unwanted and malicious mail that is otherwise making it through my upstream controls. Now, to do this, and when we talk about how Abnormal functions, what we ultimately do is we are ingesting, as I mentioned, tens of thousands of different data points. You'll sometimes hear us say tens of thousands, sometimes 50,000 plus. But fundamentally, when Abnormal gets integrated with an organization, what we want to do is profile and learn and understand what do normal human collaboration patterns look like so that we can identify anomalies, or if we want to stay on brand, abnormalities that indicate attack. And so a couple of quick examples of this would be things like, as we're profiling not only where a user comes from, we're understanding, when I say where a user comes from, where they logged in from, what device they're using, etc. But then we're understanding, who do they communicate with? Is that an external or an internal party? What types of communications are they having? Is this like a client-vendor relationship, or are these maybe a couple of people that happen to work at different companies that go get lunch once a month because they're friends? Ultimately, as we process and understand and normalize or understand data and behaviors across those 50,000 plus data signals, we're ultimately able to then identify anomalies that are indicative of attack. Going just a little bit deeper, beyond doing that native integration with your Microsoft or your Google Workspace tenant, we also have the ability to directly integrate with other security solutions such as CrowdStrike, such as Okta, so that we can ingest additional behaviors and additional data points with which we can make more meaningful correlations, more meaningful data decisions, and ultimately still further reduce risk in an automated fashion for your organization. Going from there, when we talk a bit more about human behavioral modeling, this is where we're understanding, again, where is this user logging in from? In this case of this pretend user here, Renee West, our senior VP of Treasury. What organizations does she also interact with? Does she work with third parties? What types of relationships or communications does she have with those third parties? And when Renee logs in for the day, where does that login come from? What browser is she coming from? What device is she coming from? And we're looking for those different types of data points and data signals to ultimately identify and understand anomalies that are indicative of attack. And relative to email, when we talk about this AI anomaly detection, what we do on the right-hand side of the screen here is really present this in a meaningful fashion where, yes, our platform is ingesting and making decisions based on tens of thousands of different data points. Rather than giving you all of that information and saying, good luck, go look at this, figure it out, we're giving you the summaries of what are the different indicators, what are the different anomalies that we identified that caused us to condemn this message. And so you're going to see things on here like an unusual IP geolocation, an unusual sender, a suspicious link, an unusual sender domain, and even a suspicious financial request. As Abnormal does this type of analysis and profiles all of these behaviors, we leverage an ensemble of AI models to identify anomalies that are indicative of attack and fundamentally address and mitigate the risk of that last 1 or 2% of unwanted and malicious mail that otherwise makes it past my secure email gateway. Leaving that world of just kind of inbound email security and how that AI platform is functioning to kind of address that last 1 or 2% of unwanted and malicious messages, what I now want to do is introduce the idea of abnormal AI for kind of further automation beyond simply stopping attacks. What are the other ways that we can automate and deliver value to our clients? So to start, one of the first ideas that I want to introduce to you is that a little over a year ago in RSA of 2024, Abnormal introduced a new AI security analyst whose primary function was to automate the process of ingesting, investigating, and responding to user-reported messages. Now, we particularly call this feature the AI security mailbox, but ultimately the underlying analyst is not only going to ingest those messages, investigate them, it's also going to respond to the end user and provide meaningful feedback to them on, hey, when you report this message, if it is safe, let's tell you the reasons why it was safe. If the end user wants to ask additional questions, they can ask that of this AI security analyst and get additional feedback from us. If the message that was reported by a user happens to be malicious, one of those rare cases where we miss a threat up front, This gives us a powerful ability not only to kind of thank and congratulate the end user for identifying and spotting this and reinforcing that behavior, but also allows Abnormal to automatically improve and update and adapt its engine to that particular threat that may have initially been missed. Either way, though, what Abnormal is doing is automating this entire process end to end, so that once your user hits, submit or report phish, you as the security team, all that you need to do is ultimately oversee what decisions are being made. And on the rare occasion that we get something a little bit wrong, correct judgments, but we significantly reduce the amount of effort that is needed to deal with user reported messages. This year at RSA, we actually introduced two new AI security agents, one of them being the AI data analyst. This is freely available to our inbound email security clients. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. And the other AI security agent that we introduced is this idea of the AI phishing coach. So, what the AI phishing coach is doing is not only providing a security and awareness training platform to send things like simulated threats and kind of reinforcement training and videos, it's actually managing that end-to-end process of saying, what should I target my users with from a meaningful simulation perspective, so that I know that they are getting relevant threats sent their way, or simulated threats, I should say, rather, sent their way. And that if and when they fail, they fall for one of those threats, I can provide meaningful coaching. Outside of just delivering, again, that security and awareness training capability, or that phishing simulation capability, we're also taking the burden off of your team to decide what to send people, when to send it, and how to follow up with them. And so these new AI security agents have proven to be extremely meaningful for our clients. The AI phishing coach is an add-on solution that would need to be purchased separately. The AI data analyst is something that is freely available to our clients. And for that AI data analyst, just a couple of prompts here that you can work with is you have the ability with this AI data analyst to get kind of more interesting or meaningful or more precise or specific reporting out of the Abnormal platform than you may otherwise get in just like the general dashboard, or if I'm exporting a bunch of data to my SIM and trying to write custom reports. What we're saying here is, let us do that for you. If I need a report that is going to benchmark me against other peers in my industry that are also leveraging Abnormal, I don't have to try to figure out how to build that type of reporting within the Abnormal portal or within my SIM. I can just ask the AI data analyst to do that benchmarking for me, not only generate slides, but give me the high-level overview of what percentage of messages am I seeing that are maybe not being seen by my peers. And so, as we kind of get to the end here, I just want to kind of highlight a couple of key takeaways. First and foremost, when we talk about Abnormal and its AI native advantage, again, what Abnormal has been doing since day one is leveraging AI to kind of emulate the way that a security operations professional would work, not only to mitigate and investigate inbound email threats, but other things like account takeovers and other risks like that can ultimately arise in organizations. Going from there, the other big differentiator that we have relative to our usage of AI is the volume and amount of data that we're processing in order to make the most precise and meaningful decisions that we can, and ultimately ingesting and normalizing and understanding this large amount of data allows us to identify some of the most sophisticated threats that you'll see, happening in email. And a lot of threats nowadays, they're originating from compromised external accounts. They're abusing legitimate content platforms. They're abusing legitimate security controls, all to bypass and get around those traditional threat detection techniques. Abnormal, by ingesting 50,000 plus data signals, has a really powerful ability to identify those slight deviations or those slight anomalies in email that are indicative of attack. And then finally, our last big takeaway here are these AI agents. Again, aside from just our inbound email security SOC analyst, we have these additional AI agents to build and help curate reports, to automate the process of user reported messages and responding to those, and then ultimately to help with security and awareness training for end users. Yeah, and really this third big differentiator for us are the inclusion of these AI agents. Aside from just that strong inbound email security capability that we've been delivering to clients for a while now, we have the strong ability to improve data reporting, user-reported message processes, and now ultimately automate the end-to-end process of phishing simulation and security and awareness training within the context of email. And so, with that, I just want to say thank you for taking the time. Thank you for listening to us and for joining the Innovate session here in general. I know that this is a relatively short session. I hope you got value from it, and I look forward to seeing you in the other sessions that we have throughout this Innovate conference.